testify. What were your thoughts on that and bringing up, Charles Vallow?
I was surprised as well. We didn't know that was going to be even allowed into this case. So it's interesting to hear that that's a factor, which we always knew it was, but that they're introducing it in the court.
Yeah, the prosecution cited Idaho Law 404B, crimes that could, set a motive. What stood out to you with what Chandler PD was talking about with how the crime scene unfolded and what they found with Charles, in the home?
I wish they would have acted sooner. It sounds like they didn't engage until January. We were not aware of the multiple shots taken at Charles. The stories have changed, and I think that is definitely a motive. Melanie Gibbon, her testimony was incorrect about the life insurance timing. Lori didn't know until after Charles had been killed. So
that has, provided inconsistencies, because from what we know, Lori didn't find out until after. She made a claim, and she found out the hard way, and she definitely let Kay know that she was upset about that. Now, back to the detective. Having to sit there with your son, your family, and hear this phone call that Chad made to the mortuary, first off, just what was that like?
I had heard the call before. It was almost funny. It was very odd. I think that I didn't know Chad was involved at that point until we'd heard that call and how involved he was. So that was news to us when we originally heard it, probably late 2019.
And does it anger you at all that that's what he was manipulating the situation and lying?
Oh, yes, because the people to decide that should have been his sons, not Chad and Lori. And certainly not Lori, and definitely not Chad.
Cheryl, it's been over 3 years. It seems like this trial was never going to happen to so many people. What are your thoughts as you've sat here this week with your family?
We're glad it's finally here. I'm impressed with the prosecution. They seem they've got it together. Maybe it's a very difficult, complicated case. So I can see the time spent on this, and lawyers changing and venues changing, and it's just, we're glad we're here and able to see what's going on and how it goes.
What's it like to see Lori?
It's interesting. It's not pleasant. I haven't seen her in years. I have probably spent more time with her in that courtroom than I ever have in my life. So, but I don't like her demeanor. I don't like the smiling, the laughing, the chit-chatting. This is very serious, and she's not taking it seriously. Doesn't appear to me.
Would you say her demeanor has been very inconsistent, unpredictable throughout this week?
I think it's consistent other than the day with the pictures. I think, but I don't, with her, I think it was an act. It's the thinking in her brain that she doesn't have to look at those pictures, but everyone else sitting in that courtroom has to, and she's the cause. So I was glad the judge ruled that she needed to stay in the courtroom.
And how do you absorb listening to this patriarchal blessing done by Chad Daybell for Alex Cox, the person who killed the father of your sons, and then Alex, we know, dies just weeks later, and it was very eerie to hear his voice and the crying on this audio.
It was, and when Chad said, "You've helped us in so many ways," that just stood out to me. It seems almost like they were giving him his last rites, because he was dead within 2 weeks of that blessing. But it's the fact that he would have done all that destruction. I mean, I had to stop myself and go, wait a minute, there's 4 or 5 people dead and 2 children dead at the time they were doing that blessing.
So he was dead 2 weeks later. Of course, there's been no suspicious circumstances, they say, but do you think there's something more?
Absolutely. Same with Joe Ryan. I think that's why all these bodies are getting cremated. And Lori's in charge of each one of them. And she takes advantage of it.
Are you concerned that they won't be able to prove a conspiracy with Lori because it doesn't seem like she gets her hands dirty even with this blessing and the phone call? Chad is doing, the deed.
I think it was Chad and Alex, but the behavior of Lori when her kids were gone since September, she didn't tell anyone. She covered it up saying they're happy. I know exactly where they are. That tells